How's it going, y'all? Welcome to Golden Valley, Minnesota. This place has some pretty unbelievable value propositions, including having some of the most beloved park spaces in all of Minnesota, while also being like less than 10 minutes to downtown Minneapolis. Let's go. All right, y'all, now we are at Medley Park, which actually has this really beautiful community garden space right there. Used to be tennis courts. It is no longer tennis courts. There's a playground, quite a lot of field space, and it connects with a huge walking path kind of network in Golden Valley. And then, of course, ice rink. And I believe there's an open skate, sort of more, not more traditional hockey rink type of a setup here as well in the winter. Golden Valley is a first ring suburb just to the immediate west of Minneapolis, and most specifically it's to the right due west of North Minneapolis primarily. For being a first ring suburb, it is very woodsy and quite sought after for a lot of reasons. The General Mills corporate headquarters is centered in Golden Valley, takes up a pretty good chunk of space here as well, but there's still a lot of beautiful area and a lot of things to really love about Golden Valley. For being a suburb, it's kind of wild how good of access Golden Valley has to downtown Minneapolis. It's about a 10-minute drive from maybe the center of Golden Valley to downtown Minneapolis. And you have basically perfectly direct routes from Golden Valley to downtown Minneapolis. Downtown St. Paul, you're looking at more of a 25 to 30-minute drive. Of course, you have to cut through Minneapolis, so everything's going to take longer if you're cutting through the biggest city in the state. The airport is decently close, 20-25 minutes or so, and plenty of different routes, like if one was to get backed up with traffic or something like that. And the boundaries are basically, to the east, you have Minneapolis. To the south, mostly is St. Louis Park. To the west is the likes of Minnetonka and Plymouth. And to the north is kind of Robbinsdale, Crystal, and New Hope, those areas generally. And one huge thing that I associate with Golden Valley is that the eastern border, while yes, it's North Minneapolis, it's actually probably more than anything Theodore Wirth Parkway, which is mostly within the boundaries of Golden Valley, and it's one of the most beloved regional parks in the Twin Cities. It's beautiful. We have a lot of footage to show you of that, so you can see just how special that place is. Schools in Golden Valley are actually pretty varied. It's kind of one of the more interesting areas when it comes to schools. First of all, you have Hopkins Public School District, which gets an A- overall, generally ranked quite highly and pretty sought after. You have Northwoods Elementary School, which gets an A+, Meadow Ridge Elementary, which gets an A+, and Hopkins High School, which gets an A-. By the way, look how just absolutely beautiful this park space is. And this is not Theodore Wirth, for the record. This is very, very, very small and modest compared to Theodore Wirth. So we'll get there in a bit. Then you have Robbinsdale Area School District, which is Independent School District 281. That gets a B- on niche. Most of, or a lot of, eastern Golden Valley falls into the Robbinsdale School District, which ranks, again, okay, but not nearly as high as the Hopkins School District. And then there's the St. Louis Park School District to this kind of on the southern border. Really a small amount of Golden Valley is served by the St. Louis Park School District. And the St. Louis Park School District gets a B, and I think it would almost be difficult to find the Golden Valley, a house that is sort of dedicated to those schools, because there's much, much fewer of them. Then one of the most sought after private schools in Minnesota is in the Golden Valley boundary, and I think it drives it. It really has shaped certain parts of Golden Valley to be more prestigious, more like executive level, maybe more sought after areas. And we're actually going to cover just one of those neighborhoods. It's a very small, very sought after neighborhood called Tyrol Hills. We actually have a listing coming up there. It's a really beautiful little corner of Golden Valley and is just very, very desired for a lot of reasons. And one of the biggest contributors to that area, as I see it anyway, to that area sort of becoming this, high-level executive, really luxury area, is this private school, which is called Breck. Breck is a A+ rated K through 12 private school in Golden Valley, and it really has contributed so much to why that little slice of Golden Valley is so desirable. There's also Yinghua Academy, I think I'm saying that correctly, which gets an A+. That's a public charter school, K through 8. And Eagle Ridge Academy is also a public charter school, and that is K through 12. And then there's one very beloved arts charter school called Perpich Center for the Arts, very highly regarded in terms of the arts. And yeah, I actually knew several people who went there, in their, I think it's only junior and senior years. And yeah, Perpich was definitely a cool spot and helped produce some very, very talented individuals that I know. Houses have a pretty dramatic price range in Golden Valley. I think the most expensive one that I see right now is pushing the $3 million mark, and that's specifically lakefront. But in this Tyrol Hills neighborhood, for example, there have been some really stunning stuff in the, 1 to 3 million range. And in areas like Tyrol Hills, there's some really stunning stuff in probably realistically the 1.25 to $3 million range, probably more right around the 1.5 to 2. That's probably a little bit more common in that more luxury end of Golden Valley. But again, there are absolutely homes that eclipse the 2 million and push up into that $3 million mark. Good luck finding a move-in ready house for under $400,000. That's going to be pretty tough. The median sale price is $430,000 here, and the lowest priced home on the market right now is $300,000. One really beloved thing about Golden Valley is that there's a pretty good opportunity for mid-century modern style houses here. A lot of ranch styles, split levels, a lot of ranch styles and really compelling, split level designs as well. There's plenty of colonials and some post-war era homes here as well. And you will see new builds in Golden Valley, typically infill sort of scrape style, where somebody tore down something more modest and put up something very, very lovely in its place. You'll find probably homes are around the 1,500 to 2,500 square footage, although in the likes of Tyrol Hills and some of those more premium areas, it's not uncommon to see 4,000 to 5,000 square foot houses there. Real quick, going to take you away from the rest of this virtual tour, but I am still in Golden Valley, and I'm at the closest thing to a downtown in Golden Valley, which is basically right around this Golden Valley center and along Highway 55, which is basically right behind the camera right now. It's a fairly modest area. The strip mall is kind of mid-century era, so there's definitely a character to it, but it's not huge, and there's really just not a ton of stuff going on here. A few cool shops in this Golden Valley center, like down in the valley, which is like a record store. There's like a rag stock, which is more like a kind of a surplus clothing store. And of course, there's a few solid restaurants back here as well. But I did want to interject just to say, if you're new here, my name is Jesse Lynch. I run the hardest working real estate team in the game. We're called To the Twin Cities. You can check out our website, tothetwincities.com. This YouTube channel is here for you as a resource to help you find a place to call home here in the Twin Cities. The goal is for this channel to continuously be the best resource on the internet about the Twin Cities, about relocating to the Twin Cities. And we don't make these clickbait videos just for views. We truly try to craft them to actually be helpful to you, to give you a sense of what these places are like. And so if this is the first video on this channel that you've watched, I implore you to go check out some of the other stuff. At every turn, we do our very best not to just tell you what it's like to live here, but to actually show you by literally being out in the places that we're talking about. And if you're interested in working with us when you move here, you can go to our website, tothetwincities.com. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in like 30 seconds or less. Then we'll take it from there and get you headed in the right direction, which is ultimately going to be the Twin Cities. And yeah, if you're not ready for that go ahead, subscribe, and we'll get back to this Golden Valley virtual tour. All right, y'all, right here is Theodore Wirth Parkway, which basically drives through Theodore Wirth Regional Park. And Theodore Wirth Regional Park, it takes up such a large piece of land. It's beautiful, and it has a very wide use case, right? It's used for many, many things. There are obviously walking path right here, paved biking path right here. That's actually attached to the Grand Rounds, or it's not attached to, it's part of, a pretty big part of, the Grand Rounds Scenic Byway. If you don't know just how good biking is in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis in particular, we have a video called Biking in the Twin Cities, and it's got a ton of information. It kind of shows very sort of POV style, shows a bunch of what it's like to be riding around these pretty amazing bike paths in the Twin Cities. There's a 9-hole golf course, I believe, in Theodore Wirth Park. There's a pretty big cross-country ski scene here as well. I got a bit of a thing going on there. I do. I apologize. There's a wildflower and bird sanctuary, and yeah, actually right here, this is sort of the some mountain biking stuff going on there. Yeah, pretty intense trail setup going on, and I think it is one of the biggest appeals, biggest draws for living in Golden Valley. And the listing that we have coming up here, again, we're kind of putting this out here to have an updated look at Golden Valley, and part of it is because we have an unbelievable listing. It's absolutely stunning, really an executive level home in Tyrol Hills, and it backs up to Theodore Wirth Park. You can actually walk out through a gate in their backyard, in the backyard of the listing, and you are eventually just in Theodore Wirth Park, and a good chunk of it is yours to kind of create a trail through there with. So again, just a very interesting, very special spot, and it seems worth putting Golden Valley on your radar if that might be a house that would be of interest to you. And yeah, this really, I mean, this is so pretty. Kind of see back behind me, just absolutely beautiful park space, and not a bad day to be shooting a video walking around Theodore Wirth. And that's actually a very smooth transition into talking through the pros and cons of Golden Valley as I see them. And I'm going to say, number one, beautiful, beautiful park space in general. Theodore Wirth obviously being the coolest, most sought after aspect of that. But there are many parks, many green spaces in general throughout Golden Valley, and a lot of them are really, really lovely. And then the other biggest pro to me is just how dang close Golden Valley is to downtown. So if you are commuting to downtown Minneapolis for professional reasons, but you want to be in a suburb, Golden Valley is literally about as good as it gets. From where we are right now, not counting me walking back to my truck, but from where we are right now, it's about 7 minutes to North Loop, which is part of downtown. It's also kind of the trendiest, most happening part of downtown, with a lot of the best restaurants in the Twin Cities. 7-minute drive, literally so close, yet you feel completely separated from anything that resembles Minneapolis, right? You feel Theodore Wirth is a huge buffer between Minneapolis and Golden Valley, and just even though it's a 7-minute drive, this feels like a totally different world. Again, right now I am 7 minutes from downtown Minneapolis, and yeah, you cannot tell at all. Another really great thing about Golden Valley is just how cool the housing stock is. I mentioned a lot of mid-century aspects and some executive level homes earlier, and really, to me, that's the two coolest things in terms of housing stock. And it's really shapes kind of the aesthetic value and kind of the character of Golden Valley. Truly just driving through some of these neighborhoods that were really just created during that mid-century era, it feels very much out of that time, right? And people respect and sort of desire that mid-century modern aspect, aesthetic so much that those houses, they do get snatched up. They do typically sell for, a premium. And if they're not renovated, they will be, right? And then, of course, you have the maybe not mid-century era, but the more executive style homes like in Tyrol Hills, where just some absolutely beautiful aspirational level architecture that are undeniable. And you get kind of very, very modern. You can also have more contemporary, and there are things that lean more Scandinavian, like the listing that we have coming up. Also, it's not all super, aspirational style homes, mid-century or newer stuff. There's also some more entry-level, more mid-century modest, if you will, type homes. There's actually quite a bit of that. But even if it's got like even the faintest heartbeat of mid-century modern, like one brick wall or one impressive brick fireplace or a roof line that's particularly compelling, just that's enough that people will fight harder for it. Then, of course, you have a good bit of the city has access to Hopkins School District, which is ranked really quite high. St. Louis Park ranked lower, and kind of in that like middle range, solid but not exceptional, at least according to niche. And then Robbinsdale, kind of the same thing, ranked slightly lower even than Robbinsdale, which we will get to in a second. But then another pro is just kind of the diverse school options, right? You have public schools, some great, some middle, right? Then you have really great charter school options, including the likes of Perpich. Then, of course, you have at least one unbelievable private school by way of Breck. And then switching over to cons, obviously some of the zoning overlaps with Robbinsdale School District, which just isn't ranked super, super highly. The inventory, while it is awesome and can be really, really lovely, I'm going to turn around here. I'm about to hit a bit of a hill. Might as well start heading back. But the inventory can be difficult to attain, right? Nick from the team often says that he said Golden Valley is not a very big postal code, right? There's just not that many houses here, right? And so if on any given weekend 10 homes come available, how many of those are going to be the right fit for you? Is it like 2, maybe 1 out of 10? Because it's probably statistically about right. And then because of that, how competitive is it going to get? Also, some of those mid-century homes, like I mentioned, if they're not renovated, if they're not, revived, they will be. But that does mean that there's a possibility that you might be the one reviving it. And with that era of homes, a few things that I'm always particularly conscious of: ages of windows, because very often, even though that's 50s and 60s era homes, it's pretty common that some of those really cool custom mid-century modern proper homes, the windows were really good, but they've just made it to 2025 and they are absolutely due for new windows. And some of them are very unique shapes. Some of them are very large and, a lot of glass, a lot of material in general. And so that really just means a large investment from you if you're going to redo all the windows. If you haven't looked into window costs, people who are watching this who have replaced windows, right? People who have not, you don't. They're more expensive than most people think, per window. I'm not going to say it on here because it will change if you watch this 2 years from now. And then I think really, to me, one of the bigger and maybe my final con will be that there's really no downtown core. There's nothing all that interesting from commercial offerings. I think, as the kids say, it's fairly mid. It's fairly suburban and just, not all that interesting in general. There's a few exceptions to kind of, more interesting shops and things like that. But generally speaking, yes, it's fairly uninspired from a commercial standpoint. That said, you're really close to the likes of downtown. The uptown is very close, so you can get to a lot of the interesting stuff relatively easy. It's just not going to be in Golden Valley, more than likely. And on a similar note, and maybe this is kind of the final con, or I don't know if it's truly a con or not, but Golden Valley is such like a variety of housing stock and areas and like price points. even when it was being built, that you can't like look at a listing and say, okay, that's Golden Valley. I know Golden Valley is up my alley. It might be, but if you really are attracted to the likes of Tyrol Hills, you probably aren't going to love like 3/4 of Golden Valley. The alternative, of course, if you like, the more affordable end of Golden Valley, certainly you would like Tyrol Hills, I would think. But yeah, just it can kind of change sort of the aesthetic value of Golden Valley. It can kind of change across all of Golden Valley or throughout Golden Valley. So let's keep going. We are kind of back into Theodore Wirth Park. Obviously, we've been featuring it quite a bit, but it's such a mainstay of this neighborhood, of Golden Valley, of this area in general. And right now we're at Wirth Lake, which is beautiful. There's beach, there's volleyball courts, there's fishing piers, and again, a lovely, lovely area. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, if you're new here, well, I'll tell you how it is. We have a section that we like to call the For Fans of section, which is to say, if you like what you see here, there may be some other places that are worth looking into, worth watching videos on this channel, because they have maybe similar lifestyle, similar characteristics about them. And it's very common that as we're helping people relocate here from wherever, literally all around the planet, it's very common that they're targeting a lifestyle and not just a location, which is very much where we come in, and it's very much our specialty, right? To sit down with you and basically talk through what does the life you live in the Twin Cities look like? What do you imagine it looks like? And then we can help you reverse engineer that and show you, well, these are other places that exists. So if you like the idea of what Golden Valley has to offer, and if you think that it's pretty close to the lifestyle you're looking for, then we have some other spots that you might want to consider, because again, they'll offer a somewhat similar lifestyle, or they have similar characteristics. Before we get into that, just one more time, I want to say that if you're moving to the Twin Cities, we would absolutely love to help you get here. We'd love to help you with your home purchase and with that whole process on the way to the Twin Cities. And you can go to our website, tothetwincities.com. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in like 30 seconds or less. And if you fill out that form, we'll get back in touch with you, and we'll get the show on the road for you, and get you headed here to the Twin Cities. Just want to show you quick little view here of Wirth Lake. Not bad at all. And so what are those neighborhoods that you might want to consider? I think there's some pretty good comps, although I will say there's certain things that Golden Valley does or has or possesses that are going to be difficult to replicate. And I would say access to Theodore Wirth Parkway is probably the number one thing that these other places won't have. Sorry, Theodore Wirth Park, obviously the Parkway too, but yeah. So number one is St. Louis Park, and that is the boundary on the south side of Golden Valley. So geographically very similar, but there are a few things, even with the geography being similar, that access to Theodore Wirth, not quite as good. Access to downtown is a little bit less good, whereas you have better access to the likes of uptown Minneapolis. Uptown is a bit more recreational and a bit less like that's where any jobs are kind of thing. But St. Louis Park is, a bit more urban, right? It just feels a little bit denser, a little bit more walkable than Golden Valley, and it's less about the park spaces, and it's a little bit more about like the suburban conveniences with like a Targets and things like that. A really good gym or something. That stuff is going to be harder to find in Golden Valley, a little bit easier to find in St. Louis Park. Then there's Hopkins, and Hopkins, again, has quite a bit in common. It's a little further out. The sort of the thing that Hopkins does a little better than Golden Valley is that it has a very cute downtown area. And I think it's a bit more charming than the downtown area of Golden Valley. By the way, a quick little panoramic here. Worth Lake. Pretty good, if I do say so. And I'm on this boardwalk, which is really lovely. The only downside, I guess I would say, is that Highway 55 is just right over here, but it's not that crazy, not that busy of a spot. Highway is a bit of an exaggeration. So you have Hopkins, again, a lot of the schools, the best schools that serve Golden Valley are the Hopkins School District. So obviously that would be a benefit of Hopkins. It's a little bit further away, a little bit more suburban. If you were hoping for like a home pre-1940s, you might be able to find that in that old downtown area of Hopkins, whereas something like that is nearly impossible to find in Golden Valley. Then on the north side of the metro, you have Falcon Heights. And I think Falcon Heights is a decent comp, but it's a little more city-like, quite a bit more dense. But just kind of the chillness, the pace of life and all that is somewhat similar. And there's like a bit of like an understated elegance to a lot of Falcon Heights. You know, it'll have smaller lot sizes. There's less of those aspirational style homes in Falcon Heights, but it is very, very close to the city. Actually, really good access to both Minneapolis and St. Paul downtowns. So for that, I'm going to include Falcon Heights on the list. Then you have St. Anthony, which is immediately to the east of northeast Minneapolis. It's contiguous basically to both cities, more or less. And St. Anthony has very highly ranked schools. Basically, it's a first-ring suburb. You have unbelievable access to the cities while still having a bit more of a suburban feel and a bit more of a suburban design. There's also some really great mid-century era homes. I will say most of what we see there are a little bit later in the mid-century era. There's a bit less of that extremely high-level design, sort of Frank Lloyd Wright style-esque, and a bit more of like Brady Bunch style homes, if that makes sense. A bit more of like the split level, less of the Rambler with the really interesting roof line. Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I will say there's less of the really impressive, like, aspirational style homes in St. Anthony as well. But that mid-century modest to kind of like mid-level, mid-century modern, there's quite a few of those in St. Anthony. The biggest downside of St. Anthony, there's not much going on inside of it, so you have to leave, kind of similar to Golden Valley. And to the extent that Golden Valley is a small, zip code, it's even smaller in St. Anthony. There's even fewer homes to choose from that would, that hit the market in any given week. And then last sort of cousin neighborhood, if you will, to Golden Valley for me is Edina. And that said, Edina is definitely the more well-off cousin. Edina has a very strong, long history of affluence, and that is evident pretty much every neighborhood in Edina, unless you get really close to the highways, for the record. You find a bit more of like the landlord-owned homes right by the highways, and there are basically highways completely, cutting through the middle of Edina. So there's a decent bit of those homes where maybe the highway noise is a bit loud, and so they're a bit more on the affordable end. Or on major streets, obviously homes are going to be a bit more affordable. But in general, Edina has a similar aspirational level of housing stock, but I would say way more of it, right? Edina is filled with that aspirational style home, and it's really not at all unusual to see homes in the $2 million plus mark, whereas in Golden Valley, that's definitely on the higher end of just about anything you'll see there. And oh, I just saw a fish jump. And for what it's worth, it's also the $2 million mark is not even beginning to be like the high end of Edina, right? You can get into 8 digits in Edina in a way that you just won't ever really see in Golden Valley. That said, there's sort of the executive style home abounds in Edina. And in general, the housing stock is of a similar age for the most part, where there's a lot of stuff in the 50s, 60s, but there's also some older like estates that are, kind of early 1900s in Edina, which again is not really something you'll see in Golden Valley. Then last, for fans of this is based on how many people we've helped move to the Twin Cities. the reality is a lot of people who like Golden Valley also would really consider different neighborhoods within Minneapolis proper or St. Paul proper. And I would say the neighborhoods that are most likely to comp out, where people are most likely to be considering either Golden Valley or one of these neighborhoods in the cities, would be Southwest Minneapolis, which has some of the best schools, actually the best public schools in Minneapolis proper, or St. Paul for that matter. Then there's Nokomis, which would be a bit more on the affordable end, where, you know, basically the same house would cost about $100,000 less or so than if you were in Southwest Minneapolis. Then in the St. Paul side of the river, Highland Park and Mac Groveland are the two that come to mind the most, where they're just a level of elegance and sort of tree-lined streets, park-like neighborhoods that, yeah, I think are part of why it sort of comps out to where there's a level of like peacefulness typically in those neighborhoods. So that's it for this video. That's it for that boardwalk too. Now we're just back in the woods. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.